Dr. I and Dr. J are back this morning to give you answers to some things that have been burning in our minds. Obviously, we're actually going to have a hurricane focus on. This week has been a really hard week with all the hurricane news. And I wanted to get your thoughts on something about bacteria that Governor Ron DeSantis said during a press conference yesterday. Take a quick listen to this.
Standing water can conceal down power lines and other hazards, so please be mindful and never walk through storm waters. Standing storm waters can also carry a bacteria that can lead to fatal infections. This type of infection was responsible for a fatality following Hurricane Helene, so please avoid wading through standing water.
Yeah, so Dr. J, we were listening to that yesterday, and I thought, man, people aren't even thinking about bacteria right now. What do you make of his comments, and what bacteria is he
So there are
referring to?
quite a few bacteria that you can encounter in standing water, but there's one in particular called Vibrio vulnificus. Anything called Vibrio vulnificus, you want to avoid, right?
Sounds like a Harry Potter
It doesn't
spell.
it, right? It needs its own show, right? So this is the thing with Vibrio vulnificus. If you ingest it, it can make you sick. You know, you get a little bit of deli belly, you don't feel great. But the really scary thing is if you have open wounds, which if you've been in a hurricane, you may have open wounds, it can get into those wounds, cause that flesh-eating bacteria, can erode skin, muscle, bone, can get systemic, cause sepsis, even death. And so that's the one you really want to avoid. So standing water, stay away from
Yeah,
it.
that sounds awful. And speaking of water, so many of these communities are being told boil your water before you drink it. But we were talking yesterday, if you boil it, but it still looks brown and murky and dirty, is it safe to drink?
So it doesn't look safe, but it is actually safe. So you're worried about bacteria, right? And you're worried about a type of bacteria called coliform bacteria, and they're thermophiles, meaning much like me, they love the heat. But if you heat the water above 165 degrees, you kill them off. And so it doesn't look good, but it's safe to drink. And something people should have in their emergency preparedness kits, the actual filter straws, where you can actually drink the water, even if it's standing water, and it filters out the bad bacteria.
Even if it's not boiled?
Even if it's not boiled.
Where do you get those straws?
Amazon.
Amazon?
Yeah.
Yeah, the place where you get everything.
Everything, right?
My mom and I were talking about this yesterday. Think about all the women who were set to deliver, the week of, days after Helene and Milton. What happens to them, and can you go into preterm labor during a scary storm?
You absolutely can.
Yeah.
So people tend to think that you go into labor during hurricanes because of the atmospheric pressure changes and bag of water breaking, things like that. That doesn't happen. What does happen, though, is this. Number one, it's stressful. And so when your body produces stress hormones, they actually communicate with cells in the placenta, and the placenta says, well, we need to get this baby out because there's something bad happening here.
Danger,
So you're likely to go into labor. Also, the mold in the air actually stimulates the immune system, can cause labor as well. So those are the two reasons you can go into labor during a hurricane. In terms of what to do, honestly, there aren't many things to do. I mean, if you go into labor, signs and symptoms of labor, go to the hospital. We're always going to be there for the most part, and you kind of ride it out.
Yeah, and I think even if you made it to the hospital you were set to deliver at, thankfully they have generators, but going home with new baby without power, I mean,
I would honestly, you
frightening.
can board. People can actually board. Like once you've been discharged, you can still board for a few days if it's not safe to go home.
Yeah. What would be your biggest piece of advice to women and families who are expecting right now? And they're like, do we get out of Dodge and go to another hospital, or?
Honestly, if you can in your hurricane area, if you can get away, get away. But if you can't get away, make sure that bag is packed, have a route planned as well as an alternative route, because you never know if your initial route's going to be blocked.
We've actually had some of our patients from our St. Croix office come up and deliver with us this week because of hurricane season.
Really?
So if you can get out of Dodge, get out of Dodge.
Yeah, get out of Dodge.
Yeah.
Gosh. Thank you both as always. I love
Absolutely.
seeing y'all.
Always
Y'all
a
are the
pleasure.
best. Yes, I'll see you next week.
All right.
And hey, everybody, to have your medical or health questions answered on our show, find Dr. I and Dr. J on social media. You can find them at the Twin Doctors _. We'll see you next week.